everyone, and welcome to In Contrast. My name is Alan.
And I'm Nisha.
And on this show, we talk about movies and the books that they're based on.
The catch is you watch the movie and I read the book, with a few exceptions.
That's right. And today, we're coming at you with one of the great mystery stories, Murder on the Orient Express.
Yes, by Agatha Christie. The book was written in 1934. It is the 8th novel in the Hercule Poirot series. But it's actually like the 10th canon piece of writing. There's also a play and a short story that I did not include in those 8. The synopsis, it's trapped on a snowed-in train in the middle of Yugoslavia. Hercule Poirot must solve the murder of Mr. Ratchet, who went to him like the day before to be like, hey, I think someone's going to murder me.
Yes.
So who's really at fault here?
Yep. Not the best planned out attempt at staying alive.
No.
So like you said, this is written by Agatha Christie. She's one of the great mystery writers of all time. She not only is she really prolific, like has written lots and lots of stories that can be adapted, but they have been as well. A lot, in many, many forms. And of course, so she has a couple of different series that she follows in her writings, but Poirot is probably the most famous of her detectives that are followed in her stories. Yeah,
and I would say he's kind of like as recognizable as something like Sherlock Holmes probably, or very close to being as recognizable.
And arguably very inspired by Arthur Conan Doyle's writing.
She openly admitted that, actually, and we'll talk about that.
It's definitely an evolution of that that was established in Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, definitely. What movies did you watch?
So there's a few different versions of this, but I watched the only 2 like major adaptations.
Yeah, there's a lot of adaptations.
Yeah, there's a lot of like one-off TV episodes and things like that. And with many of the stuff that we talked about, there's always, little elements of it found in all sorts of things all over pop culture.
Yeah, like references on TV shows.
Yeah. Or things that follow the basic structure for the story, things like that. But for this episode, I did the 2 major movies that were released. So the first one was in 1974, directed by Sidney Lumet, one of the great directors. And both of these films have an ensemble cast, so I won't even get into naming the cast just now until we start getting into some of the characters.
Yeah.
But that's one of the big strengths of this being adapted, is that there's so many characters.
Yeah.
So you can really have like a pretty stellar ensemble cast. And then it was also recently remade again in 2017, directed by and starring Kenneth Branaugh. And this was the first in what is now 3 films of Agatha Christie Poirot stories that have been made by him.
Okay, so Kenneth Branaugh directed and starred.
Yes, he also plays Hercule Poirot.
Okay, interesting. So before we get too deep into it, which version did John Malkovich play Hercule Poirot in?
I'm sorry?
So there have been at least 29 actors who have portrayed the beloved detective. And according to Wikipedia, John Malkovich is one of them.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. He seems to come up as like one of the oft forgotten portrayals of many characters that we do. I'm also thinking about him playing Tom Ripley.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And again, a version that I did not watch or think about. But yeah, I did not know that. I obviously, like we said, Poirot, one of the big characters in an already expansive body of works from Agatha Christie. So there's a big hole to dive in there. And I did not necessarily go all the way into it. I focused solely on this story with a few things that, help bulk up the conversation about it.
Yeah. I have a few things, but yeah, we'll mostly talk about the story. We won't get too far out of that.
That's news to me, but I do know that he did not play a version of Poirot in any adaptation of the Orient Express.
Yeah. This is, the John Malkovich that is not necessarily Murder in the Orient Express.
No,
it's just Hercule Poirot.
Do you know which stories he played?
I do not. Okay. I did not look that deeply.
It's a fun fact, But yeah, so like you said, he has been, I believe, in 33 of Agatha Christie's novels and 51 short stories. So definitely a big character with many potential adaptations.
Yeah, which does not include plays that she's written.
Right.
I don't know how many plays she's written.
I don't either. But.
He is, Hercule Poirot in the United States is public domain.
Is he?
In the UK, he is not.
Oh, interesting.
He's still got a couple more years before he becomes public domain. But I'm guessing there are a few places that kind of have him on lock, so no one else is really messing with it anyway.
Absolutely.
Something interesting about this story is it was actually in part inspired by some real things that happened. So the Orient Express is a real train, or was a real train. It ran from 1883 to 2009. It ran kind of like across all of Europe, basically. Agatha Christie herself had ridden on it to go visit
several
her husband.
times.
Yeah. And it famously did get snowed in at some point in like the 1920s or something like that. Like these are things that actually have happened. Maybe not murder, but the train is real and it does get snowed in sometimes.
It's kind of a culmination of several real life things that, were either in the news or that she experienced firsthand.
Yeah. One of the big news stories I'll just kind of get into is that there was a kidnapping and murder of Charles Lindbergh's son, Charles II or Charles Jr. He was a very famous pilot. And what's really actually cool about Lindbergh, and please excuse me while I go off on an aviation tangent, but I love this stuff. He was the first pilot to fly nonstop from New York to Paris. This was also the first solo transatlantic flight, which I would never do a solo trans-ocean flight.
No, sounds
large
terrifying.
body of water alone. No, thank you. He set the record for the longest nonstop flight at the time. Obviously, now we have much longer ones. So he was a pretty big deal at the time,
absolutely.
And he's really interesting. I recommend reading up a little bit about him and how some people thought he was a Nazi sympathizer, but I don't think he was. But he's cool, so I recommend looking up Charles Lindbergh if you're interested in that kind of stuff.
I don't know a ton about him, or I know he was quite famous and known to be a good pilot, but it's just kind of one of those stories that you hear about the Lindbergh baby a lot.
Yep.
I just remember hearing about that as a kid, even though it had happened, 60 years prior.
I don't think I ever heard about it.
Really? I don't remember if it was just one of those stories you come across or if it was, actually taught in history class or anything. But it's, just those two words together. You just hear Lindbergh baby a lot, I feel like.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people listening were familiar with that story because it was a huge deal at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which obviously Agatha Christie parallels with some of the happenings in this story.
Quite directly, in fact.
Yeah, it's basically a one-for-one carbon copy with a little bit extra death, I would say.
Yes, and, the whole actual, further on mystery that we're really exploring.
Yes, that's not the mystery. Yeah.
Exactly. I do just want to shout out a couple other little adaptations that we're not going to talk about. Mm-hmm. Probably the most noteworthy, again, those were the only two major films, but there were some TV episodes or made-for-TV movies. But probably the next most popular one that I would have focused on would have been from the TV show Agatha Christie's Poirot. Mm-hmm. I believe it came out in 2010 or so. But there was a feature-length episode based on this story, like a nice 90-minute TV episode. And it's supposedly a pretty good episode and pretty good telling of this story.
Yeah.
And then there were a few other ones. There was a 2001 TV film that starred Alfred Molina that was not very well received. Don't know too much about that. And then there have also been some Japanese and Chinese TV shows that have adapted it into episodes as well.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was looking at the list of actors who had portrayed Poirot and how it's actually quite a diverse list. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it is a fairly, obviously the setting is very specific in some of these stories and whatnot, but I mean, you can do a lot with a character like this. You know? There's a lot of adaptability there for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And of course, it has been adapted to the stage as well, as has nearly every work that we've talked about somehow.
Yeah.
But this one makes a lot of sense, I think.
Yes, and and like we said, Agatha Christie herself wrote plays. So I would say there is like zero surprise that this ended up on the stage.
Right.
But as we're doing this more and more, I'm less and less surprised by books being adapted for anything, really. Once I found out about the SpongeBob musical, I was like, yeah.
It just unlocks something for you.
Yeah, I was like, all right, anything can be adapted for stage, I guess.
Yeah, of course. And then it's been in all sorts of there's comic strips and all sorts of things about Poirot. And this is, of course, one of the more noteworthy stories of his. So it's no surprise that it's been put into so many different formats.
Yeah, and I'm going to say I do love a good Poirot video game. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of just like point and click kind of mystery wandering around sort of stuff. Yeah. I'm a sucker for that. I think the most recent one I played was the ABC's Murder it was by a pretty small company. I can't remember. But he's had a lot of video games too.
It's a fun game, Say you love the Sherlock games too. I mean, it's just a great format for a mystery like this.
I think actually, and I guess we can talk about this later too, but I think that this Poirot-ian style of having all the mystery and all the evidence and everything laid out, and then the big exposition at the end works really well in video games.
It does.
Because you are the one piecing things together, and then at the end it's explained through the things you figured out. So I think it's actually a great formula for video games, and I think that might be, in my opinion, where that formula shines the best.
I mean, it's stretched out a little bit more, so it's like kind of a nice reminder of some of maybe the earlier stuff that you discovered to have it kind of laid out, and it's just satisfying. It's like, okay, I put all this together, here it is.
Yeah, and you get, and because you're part of it, you're like, oh, this is what happened.
Yeah.
By then you know what happened, and you get to see it laid out in a beautiful picture that you helped create.
Right. Yeah, it just makes sense for the format. And I'm as I was watching this, I was just thinking the whole time, like, I wonder how Nisha feels about the big exposition, because it's such a thing made out of it. And there's even a line in the 1974 film that's just like hilarious having to do with that.
Yeah.
We'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that at the end.
Yeah. So we'll feel out how you feel it comes together in the end. But how was the novel kind of, what was the reception for it when it came out?
People really liked it. They really liked it. It was well received and people were into it. They kept saying gray matter, which I think is something Poirot says in the book.
He talks about his little gray cells a lot.
Well, that's it, the gray cells.
That's throughout all of his stories. That's when he's doing his thinking.
Yeah. And there was one reception that was really funny. Let me see if I can find it. The little gray cells solve once more the seemingly insoluble. Mrs. Christie makes an improbable tale very real and keeps her readers enthralled and guessing to the end. That was from the Times Literary Supplement in 1934. I just think it's funny that it's like, it's insoluble. And maybe that's one of my hitching points, is there maybe are like a few empty pockets that Poirot has to like make leaps for.
Okay, sure.
But I just thought that was really funny, because for me, like, when I'm reading a mystery, I want to like have some ideas by the end. Mm-hmm. I don't want it to be insoluble. But no, it was really well loved, and I had a really good time reading it. I had a fun time.
That's great. I think that kind of summarizes the way that most people felt about it. That a lot of reviews at the time, and even contemporaneously, contemporaneously and after, they talk about how, like, if you really think about it, like, the whole mystery itself is kind of ludicrous.
Oh yeah, it's so ludicrous.
But that you don't necessarily feel that while you're consuming it.
Yeah, and I will say, I think, so given the style of book, it's quite short. Mm-hmm. And if maybe there had been like one or two more chapters, I'm thinking that would have really put this like little arch that like sums up the last few clues that you needed to make those last few connections. Because I was like literally so close to figuring it out at the end. But I just couldn't get that last little piece because they just don't tell you that information.
Right, yeah. Some of it's like definitely held just in the mind of Poirot, and you're not really getting it until the very end.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm just going to talk about this now because we're talking about it. You know how I feel about this. So Agatha Christie has openly admitted she was inspired by Sherlock Holmes. Mm-hmm. So many mysteries do this Sherlock Holmes trope in which things are not revealed till the very end, and secrets are kept from the reader. But it works in Sherlock Holmes because Watson is telling the story, and we don't get that information until Watson gets that information.
I'm pretty sure that we just talked about this in our last episode, by the way.
We probably did.
Talking about Shutter Island.
Yeah, we probably did. But the thing about this story is, so it's written in omniscient, which gives it a little bit of a break because we're head hopping from one character to another. And she doesn't ever like have Poirot be like, but I'm not going to tell you yet, or something like that. Like, you feel like you're generally following his train of thought. And quite often he's like, I don't know, until the very end. So that's great. But then you get to the end and it's just like, there were a few things he knew in between here and here that should have been dropped in. Mm-hmm. And that's something a lot of writers do, is they purposefully keep a fact from the reader that the narrator would know and would share. And that drives me bonkers.
Okay.
So bonkers, because it's not a good trope or strong trope. Like, if
I think we all are very aware of how you feel about this, but how did it work for you in this case?
It was a stretch, but it was okay.
Okay.
I was able to just say, okay, she didn't give us those details, but generally speaking, she did. Generally speaking, she didn't keep a lot.
I think it's like, I agree with you that it doesn't make sense a lot of times, but especially in this case, it just feels like having those few extra little morsels at the end is really important.
Yeah.
You know, to make it feel like you're waiting for something.
Yeah, and you're figuring it out with him, because it is cool.
You get a lot of it
before
the reveal. It's not like it's all just a mystery.
Yeah, almost all of it. And you're like really close to getting those last like maybe 2 details that you need.
So I think getting you that close and then holding back just a few details is perfect for this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't make sense in terms of, you know.
Well, this is also why I think it makes more sense in movies and video games. Video games, you're figuring it out yourself, putting those pieces together yourself, so they can't keep things from you. Otherwise, it's extremely unsatisfying.
Right.
In movies, you're not in the character's head.
Yeah, that's
the character can be figuring these things out himself.
Yeah.
In books, you are in the character's head, and therefore leaving these things out is awkward and weird and uncomfortable.
How do you know that he's not just piecing it together as he's explaining it?
Because he says it. He's like, and this is what happened. Anyway, let's jump into the story. Do you have anything else you want to say before we...
Well, I wanted to mention that line in the 1974 film. It's basically like, okay, so they've gone and he's questioned everyone he's going to talk to, and then he's like, okay, would you kindly ask the chief attendant to gather all the tables and chairs and arrange them? It's time for us to confront the passengers with the solution of the murder. That is an exact line that is stated in that movie. And it made me lose it.
It's not dissimilar to what he says in the book. He doesn't like say, hey, let's arrange everything. But he's like, all right, now bring everyone here and I will reveal the truth. And you're like, so you already know what's happening.
I just thought it was fantastic.
I will say, in the favor of all these goofy gripes that I have, very early on in the book, he's described as a ridiculous-looking little man, the sort one could never take seriously.
Yeah.
So there is a sense of levity throughout, even though they're dealing with like a horrific murder and some pretty bad stories.
We will get into that, obviously, as we talk through it. Again, this is going to be a very character-driven conversation, I think more so than story.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I have many opinions about how the movie's handled his portrayal, and what I think they're trying to do with his character.
Yeah.
I did want to go back and just say one more thing about the general reception of the novels. My favorite thing that I picked out was Raymond Chandler's opinion. You may know him as a prolific noir writer. Okay. He wrote a lot of pulp novels and, a lot of movies that were adapted into noir movies. But he had that same kind of criticism of the story, that it's just like too ridiculous and it doesn't make sense. And he did not seem to think it came together in a satisfactory way. This is the man that wrote The Big Sleep.
Oh.
One of the most convoluted, nonsensical mysteries.
Is that not? No. Am I thinking maybe that's Laura, the one where like the guy drives off the pier and then it's never resolved?
Yeah, that's not that one.
That's Laura. Okay, sorry. But that's like that's pretty happens a lot in noir. Where
Absolutely.
Like someone drives off a pier and then it's never addressed.
And I have no problem with that. I think that Raymond Chandler is a fantastic writer.
Yeah.
You can't complain about that, my guy.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. You wrote The Big Sleep. It makes no sense. It's a joy to watch. It makes no sense.
What year did The Big Sleep come out?
Oh, God, I don't remember. 40-something?
40s, though? Because that would be
It was after the fact, for sure.
Yeah, so, like, you could have learned from this by then. No. You know, I think at the end of the day, what Raymond Chandler and Agatha Christie teach us is that you should just have fun. With these goofy, ridiculous things, just have fun.
Absolutely true. This is not meant to be taken very seriously.
Yeah.
It's just a nice, like, visual mind puzzle for you. Like, that's all it is.
Well, presented by a man with a curly whirly mustache.
Yes, of course. And we'll have much more to say about his mustache, I'm sure.
You probably will. I'll only have a little bit, but I do have something to say.
I mean, he's fascinating in his descriptions that he's given.
Yeah,
Poirot is. So.
Yeah, there's actually not a lot of description of him in this book.
Okay, but there is throughout all of his stories. You can really piece together quite a picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So should we dive into the story?
Yeah, let's get into it.
So the story is organized in 3 parts in the book. Part 1 is like the introduction and then the crime and their like initial investigation. Part 2 is basically all interviews, and then part 3 is the wrap up. Yeah. So part 1 opens with him taking a different train to Istanbul, where he goes to a hotel, has dinner, meets up with a friend, finds out he needs to get back to London sooner than he thought. They go to the Orient Express. This friend is Monsieur Bouc, who is like the director of one of the directors of the train company.
Yeah.
So they both get on the Orient Express, and they're literally like, "Oh, Mr. Harris is supposed to be here. He's booked this room number or whatever." And they're like, "Well, he's not here, so give it to Poirot. Screw him." And then they just get on the train and leave.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, screw him. He's not there.
But
train's ready to go. Let's go.
They still had like 3 minutes to departure.
Look, if you're late, I mean, you gotta just go. All right.
Except they were not.
If you're not early, you're late.
Yeah, that's what it was. He wasn't early enough, so they gave it to Poirot and then left this supposed quote-unquote Mr. Harris.
There's quite a big deal made of the fact that the train is full.
Which it's not commonly full this
because
time of
it is
year.
like winter time.
Yeah. Everyone keeps saying, this train will not be full. Yes, I can get you a first class ticket. It'll be so easy. And then all of a sudden, they like can't even get him a second class ticket because the only like compartment that's available, second class, it's 2 people per compartment, is with a woman. So he can't share with a woman. So they like put him in something else. And then later on he gets into
we'll get to that
class compartment. But yeah, so
but yes, there's quite, I don't know if the book makes such a big deal out of it, but in the film they really, it's like, okay, even though the director of the train company is standing there like, this is my good friend, you will find him a spot.
Yeah.
There's still some pushback.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they're literally like, no, no, we can't. I'm sorry, we can't.
And, of course, there's very good reason for that.
Yes. But because they kick out Mr. Harris, he ends up with McQueen, who is like, oh, hi. And then, okay, whatever. And then they're fine.
Yeah, just kind of a strange guy, McQueen.
Yeah, he's like, it's clear that he like wanted to be alone. And then he's in a second class compartment. But then he's not alone, and he's stuck with this tiny little Belgian man who's really weird looking.
And there's quite a lot of complaints about, like, at least in the 74 film, somehow both he and Poirot are blaming the other for not being able to sleep because the other is snoring. So somehow they're both awake and snoring the entire night.
That's so funny. That's not in the book, but that's a great way to set tone.
Yeah.
Tone for this, because this book sets a lot of that funny tone with this very early. He's not even on the Orient Express yet, which is the first train he takes, and you spend like a paragraph.
Right. Okay.
And they're like, I think it's after a different thing, but they're just like on the platform making small talk with the police, and it's really awkward and funny, and they keep like repeating themselves, and it's like quite hilarious.
There's a lot of humor.
Yeah, so the humor is definitely established early, but McQueen it's actually pretty short-lived. It doesn't take long for them to be like, and then we move along.
Right. I mean, it's not actually important, right? It's just for the humor of it. Yeah, I don't know how they introduce all the characters in the book, but in the film, this is very much, once they get to the station and they're starting to board the express, kind of in between them having this conversation about trying to find Poirot a spot, you're kind of getting this, like, rotating crew of all the passengers coming up to the station and getting on the train.
Oh, okay.
So it's like kind of a fun way to introduce everybody. Of course, you don't know everything about who people are just yet and everything, but it starts to, familiarize yourself with some of the faces and who they are and how they act.
Yeah.
It starts right away to just, they all have their little eccentricities and things, and they're all shown straight away in this scene.
Yeah. So for this one, you kind of learn about them more later on, especially in the interviews. But he does like look at all of them in like the dining car or something like that, and is describing them.
You have to set it up somehow.
Yeah, and he's just describing all these people. And I would say that at first I was like, okay, there's all these people. Why are we talking about all of them? But they are all important.
And that's one of the great challenges, I think, of bringing something like this to screen, is that you have such limited time. You're trying to, again, focus so much on characters, who these people are, who they really are, all these elements of it. And it's really hard to do that in, a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
To where you can like recognize who different people are and why they matter. It's a lot of stuff to pull together in a short amount of time.
Yes. And there are, I think, 16 total major characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Named characters. That's a big cast for all of them to be important for a movie.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big, like, every single person is named, has a past, has to present evidence. Like, that's a lot.
Which is why I feel like it's so important for each character to kind of have like a thing, something that differentiates them. Even with that, like, I think the movie is quite successful at that, and it's still kind of hard to keep up at times.
Yeah.
But that's just the nature of it.
The book does a really good job, and I, once again, listened to the audiobook. This one I would actually recommend reading. But I listened to the audiobook, and I read it a little bit, and you can see in the writing that they all had their thing, but also the voice actor was really good at like giving each of them their own thing, so you like immediately knew who was talking.
That's really important.
It was done really, really well. Yeah.
And then just going back in the movies, there's not a whole lot brought up about things leading up to this. It's kind of just, it's important to drive home the fact that he was not planning to be on this train at this time.
Yeah.
Nor was anyone else planning for him to be there. It just was kind of happenstance. So this is a little bit different in that he was not like sent to investigate a case. It happened naturally while he was there.
Yeah, so that's exactly in the book. He gets a telegram or something from London saying, we need you on the next train.
Yeah. Do they talk at all about like what he's doing in Istanbul before? Like, do they talk about the case he was there for or anything like that?
So he was coming from Aleppo.
Uh-huh.
And he was only stopped in Istanbul to get on to the next train.
Okay.
He was just vacationing for like a couple days.
Oh, okay.
So he's in Istanbul for like 4 hours.
Okay. I was just curious because it does make a point that it's set in Istanbul at the beginning, but it's just not important. And I believe in the 2017 version, he's actually in Jerusalem.
Why would they change that?
You're gonna ask that a lot based on things that I say about that movie.
Okay.
Lots of changes, have basically no explanation for any of them.
You said 2017 version? Was that when there were like, was that happening in Turkey? Was that, there were like riots or something? That was before
It's
that.
not set in 2017.
I know, but I'm just thinking for filming, maybe they're like, oh, maybe we can't film in Turkey, so we're going to go to Jerusalem, and we're just going to say
not like any of them were filming on location anyway. I'm pretty sure that the 74 film Istanbul is filmed in France.
That's fine. And really, most of it should just be filmed on a set.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you don't need to go to location for the 5 minutes that are in Istanbul. Anyway, so moving on. I think it's the first night that they're there. A man called Ratchet approaches. Actually, I think there are 17 named characters because Ratchet is one of them. And I didn't count him. He approaches Poirot and says, hey, I think someone's going to try to murder me because I'm really wealthy, and I would like to hire you to not be murdered. And Poirot says, I will not take your case because I do not like your face.
It's a great line.
And is that what he says in the
No, I knew that was in the book, but he says something to the same effect in the 74 film, at least. He's just like, well, these days I only take cases that I'm interested in, and frankly, I'm already bored by this conversation, or something like that. It's also, decently quippy.
Yeah, I mean, he also does say, like, I don't have to take cases just for the money. Like, he says that. But the ultimate reason why he doesn't take it is because he doesn't like it.
Right. And he's, like, offering him more and more money. Like, here, I'll give you $10,000. I'll give you $15,000.
Yeah, he's like, literally, like, it's, like, ridiculous amounts of money, especially for the time. And you're like, why are you not, like, just saying, yeah, okay, I'll protect you for one night or, like, 2 nights?
Because no means no.
Yeah.
Poirot doesn't care about that.
Yeah. Well, lo and behold, Ratchet dies. But that's on like 2 nights after or something like that. This is a long
the following
train
night.
Yeah. It's the following.
So the first day that they're on the train is when he asks him that.
Yes.
And Ratchet asks him to be his bodyguard.
Yes.
That night is when the what's his name? Book,
yeah.
That's when he offers to switch rooms.
Yes. But they don't switch on the first night. Not in the book. So Poirot gets a first class cabin, I guess, not far from Ratchet.
Yeah, I think he's directly next door, in fact.
So he, through the night, hears a series of things. There's like a scream. He opens his door at one point to see the conductor checking on Ratchet, and Ratchet responds saying, "Ce n'est rien, je me suis trompé," which means it's nothing, I was mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Mrs. Hubbard, who is the over-the-top American, who you can like just imagine the stereotypical over-the-top American, is like frantically ringing her bell nonstop. And the conductor comes like running 5 minutes later to check on her.
This is a common occurrence with her, by the way.
Yeah, she's like, you can tell this is the kind of person she is. When things kind of settle down, Poirot finally rings his bell for service. The conductor comes, he gets mineral water. And then Michel, the conductor, informs him the train is stuck in the snow. It is no longer moving, which Poirot actually can't sleep because it's not moving. And they are stuck in Yugoslavia. And that's when he hears a loud thump next door and sees a woman in a scarlet kimono walking by. I don't think she's really in a hurry.
Kind of just catches a glimpse of her going down the hallway.
Yes. Yeah. So the train is stuck here for the rest of the story.
Yep.
And this is when things kind of like people are really on edge. They're upset that the train isn't moving. They're upset by the snow. And then this murder is discovered. Mm-hmm. And Mrs. Hubbard is up in arms.
Of course. Well, she stays up in arms. That's her whole thing.
Yeah. And she notably also has a cabin next to Ratchet. I think they're like one on either side or something like that. So yes, she's up in arms. She's basically telling everyone the moment she knows about anything. Everyone now knows there's been a murder committed.
Yep. Well, I think it's a pretty hard thing to keep secret at this point.
It is. Yeah, I don't know.
Especially because they're all like rooming right next to each other.
Yeah. I mean, it's like 2 cars, but like everyone in first class is obviously going to be like, there's a dead dude on the train. So this is when they go and investigate the crime, and there's conveniently a doctor on board, Dr. Constantine.
Yes. So this is who Book had started rooming with.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was just him and Constantine in their little car.
Yeah.
That's where he had moved to when he swapped with Poirot.
Yes, exactly. And Dr. Constantine has already examined the body by the time Poirot is informed about the murder, or by the time, Poirot is brought to the murder scene. They learn a little bit about it beforehand, but they pretty quickly go to examine the body.
Yes.
And they find some evidence of like a pipe cleaner for a like tobacco pipe, a handkerchief with an H embroidered on it, and several stab wounds.
12 to be exact.
12. Of various ferocity and various strength. And then a little charred piece of paper that Poirot is able to read, and it says, remember little Daisy Armstrong.
Mm-hmm. Now, I do have a question about, was he just kind of naturally able to read it, or did he have to do something to be able to uncover what was written on it?
He did have to do something, but I'm not entirely sure what. It was something about like holding it up to a flame and like.
Okay, so that's what they do in the film. He I forget what he calls it. There's some exact term for what it is, but he basically puts like a little mesh thing and puts the paper on top of that, and then another one, and then he puts like a fire under it, and it's essentially like the ashes or the, as the paper starts to burn again, you can see the letters in it.
Yeah.
So it was a cool idea.
I think I was so much like, wow, this is just magic, that I kind of just breezed past it. It sounded like ridiculous.
I don't know how well that actually works in real life, but like it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
I like the idea anyway. It works well enough for this.
Yeah, and again, suspension of disbelief. So I was fine with being like, I don't know, he figured out what it said. So, okay, we've met a lot of characters at this point.
Yes.
Who are they? Tell me about them.
Well, obviously, we've already talked quite a bit about Poirot. He's played by Albert Finney in the 1974 version, and like I said, Kenneth Branaugh in the 2017 version. I think that at least from what I understand about him, the 1974 version nails him down quite a bit more. Okay. He's a short, kind of funny-looking guy. He limps around. He kind of, he's an oddball.
Yeah.
But he's very like kind of sophisticated and very particular and very, kind of finicky about things. And he has his little quips and likes to say his little remarks and little witticisms and things. But, he's generally like kind of a no nonsense but friendly guy.
Yeah, that sounds like Poirot.
Yeah, and so this is especially done very well by Finney by the end of the movie, like especially once he's like laying out the whole thing in like the third act. Mm-hmm. It seems like the ramblings of a lunatic at times, and I think that's exactly what it's supposed to be like, but then it ultimately comes together in a way that makes sense. And then, Kenneth Branagh is just like a whole different story, I guess. It's not terrible.
Oh boy.
But he's obviously much taller. He's much more kind of like naturally elegant, I guess, but not in the like sophisticated way that Poirot seems like he's supposed to be.
Okay.
He's much more likable in a way that doesn't fit the character to me.
Yeah, because the people don't necessarily like
he's supposed to be a little bit abrasive. Like he's not rude, but he's matter of fact.
Yeah.
And it's just, it doesn't fit the character at all. I think he does maybe have a mustache slightly closer to what is Christie envisioned, because that was her one remark about the 1974 version. Yeah. She notably like hated all adaptations of her work. But the 74 adaptation, She liked a little bit more. She's quoted as having a grudging appreciation to the 1974 film, which is more than she said about any of the rest of her adaptations. And really, her one specific complaint was that Albert Finney did not have the mustache that she envisioned.
Yeah, so
which it's still good. It's not like, super grandiose or anything, but it's very well put together and curled, and he looks like Poirot, what you imagine.
So this is actually a good time to mention his mustache. In the one big moment in the book when they talk about his mustache is when they're lighting the thing on fire to read the letter, and he tells someone to go fetch his little curling iron from his cabin. And when they bring it in, he's like, I use this for my mustache. And then they just continue.
Yeah, he's, like I said, he's got his things. He knows what he's about.
Yeah, so you know that he's so particular about his mustache. He curls it.
Right.
So if you don't have like a perfectly curled mustache, you are not Poirot.
But he does, so that's the thing, is that I think that the Branaugh version of it is more full. And I think that's what is imagined by Christie.
Oh.
Whereas Albert Finney's is much thinner and shorter.
Okay.
But Branaugh does not curl it. It's just like kind of a big thing that wraps around his whole face.
Oh, that's like a mutton chop to mustache.
Kind of. It looks a little bit different. I don't know how else to describe it. But yeah, it's like a line that goes all the way. So I don't think either of them are particularly accurate. But I do think that Albert Finney's just like, he looks more like Poirot.
This is also interesting because in 1930, remember, this story was written in 1934. Mm-hmm. Agatha Christie described Poirot as insufferable. Mm-hmm. Not as in he is an insufferable character, as in she could not find him tolerable anymore.
Oh, I do remember hearing about this where she doesn't she even try to kill him off or something? At some point?
I don't think so, because she was saying that she just got more and more sick of him until the 70s when they finally retired him. And she knew the public loved him so much that she kept writing him.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she tried to
I definitely could be making that up, but there's a story sticking in my head that at one point she had decided she wanted to kill him off and was not allowed to by her publisher.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. But so what I'm hearing more likely here is that she was so freaking sick of Poirot, who she had created. I don't think she would have liked him in any medium.
She just didn't want to look at his face anymore.
Yeah, because I bet these portrayals are pretty freaking good. And he's annoying.
Yeah.
And she was sick of him. She didn't want to watch movies.
I mean, I've read a couple of these stories long ago, but I don't have some firm image of Poirot in my mind other than what we've just seen throughout different adaptations. But it just it feels like this one works to me.
Yeah. So. Yeah. All right. So we also tell me about Monsieur Bouc.
So he is actually Signor Bianchi in the 74 film.
Okay.
He is, I think, called Bouc in the 2017 version, but he's quite different. He's not actually the director. He's the nephew of the director or something, who is very young, 20 years old, and somehow still portrayed as a lifelong friend of Poirot. So that makes sense. Not a huge character overall. But in the 74 film, he's really kind of just used as comic relief. So as they start to, I'm getting a little bit ahead, but as they start to question all these passengers, he's basically just sitting next to Poirot being like, they did it. It was them. And then the next person would come in, he'd be like, nope, it was them. So that's quite funny, but
that is funny. In the book, he's convinced it's the Italian, and he keeps screaming about the Italian.
Yeah. So there's not a whole lot about that, but I think they changed him to an Italian guy in the 74 version just so he can make the comment about Cassetti, who we have not talked about yet, but for your information. about him being Italian and how upsetting that was to him.
Okay.
I think that's the only reason, although I would argue it makes much more sense to make him Belgian as an old friend of Poirot, but whatever.
Yeah. I mean, Belgium and Italy aren't that far apart.
No, but
I guess if you're like a 21-year-old Italian, and then there's
this was the 74. He is the same age as Poirot.
Okay, then it's a little bit. Okay, sorry, I was confusing them.
Yeah, and then we have Dr. Stavros Constantine. He's a Greek physician, a medical doctor.
Yep.
That's about all that needs to be said.
Well, then, let's move right along.
Well, we've talked about Miss Hubbard.
Yes, Miss Hubbard.
Very important. So she is a crucial character here.
She is.
Very well played by Lauren Bacall in the 74 version.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. She's just absolutely wonderful, and by that I mean extremely off-putting and annoying.
She is 100% the correct person to play Mrs.
She has that, like, very, like, I used to be important and still act like I am very important. Like, it's just very fitting for her.
Does Mrs. Hubbard keep going on about her daughter? Like, my daughter said this train would be the safest way to go.
Yeah, she says some things about that. I mean, really, she's just, especially in the 74 version, I think it's much closer to her character in the book. Mm-hmm. She is just constantly complaining about something. It doesn't even really matter what it is.
Yes.
Something is wrong.
And in the book, she always finds a way to tie it to her daughter, and how her daughter, like, said this would be great, and how her daughter would be so upset. And
I know she made a comment about, like, her daughter told her to take the train and said she would get where she needed to go on time or whatever, but I didn't remember catching any other references to her daughter.
I'm pretty sure also later in the book they describe Mrs. Hubbard's grandchildren as ugly.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And then she's played by Michelle Pfeiffer in the 2017 version.
Okay.
She's fine. Like, nothing to write home about. I will just blanketly say that the 2017 version gives almost no time or credence to fleshing out the characters. It's only focused on Poirot, which is all the more upsetting when it's directed by the person playing him. It just feels like a self-grandiose kind of nonsense thing to me.
Yeah,
I wonder if you can tell how I feel about that movie.
I know. And I mean, I think what's so important about this is that every single character is important. And that's why every single one has such a defining characteristic, which you can honestly make memorable in like one or two lines.
Yeah.
Have Mrs. Hubbard wail about her daughter and the train.
Yeah,
and then
which
she'll be memorable.
they clearly tried to make her annoying, but they don't drive it home as much. Like, she's much more likable in the 17 version.
And she actually is likable in the book. She's just annoying.
Right.
Yeah.
But at least in the 74 version, it's treated quite funny, where everyone's like kind of trying to avoid her all the time, or like complain about, like, I think you said that Poirot was roomed next to her in the book.
Ratchet is, but they're all like kind of in a
she's
line.
one down. That's right. That's right. She's one down. So that is the same in the movie. But Poirot makes a big thing about, like, please tell me I'm not next to Miss Hubbard. But yeah, she's just like, and I guess the big difference is in the 74 version she complains a lot, and in the 17 version she just rambles a lot, but she's not necessarily complaining.
No, you need her to be complaining.
You do. I think it's important.
Yeah.
And then finally we have Samuel Ratchet. So this is, of course, our victim, and he's an American businessman. What business he does, who knows? He won't say.
I mean, he's only alive for like 2 pages.
I mean, that's true. But yeah, so of course he's the one that asks Poirot to be his bodyguard, and he's already a little suspicious of him.
No one likes his face.
No. He's just a generally unlikable guy.
Yep.
Which is, I think, why it can kind of be played off as like, it's very possible someone just wanted to kill him.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, it could have been somebody he just met at the station right before they got on the train, and they just decided they didn't like him that much.
Yeah, like early on, people were like, don't want this guy.
Which, very fittingly, in terms of casting, is played by Johnny Depp in the 2017 movie.
Okay.
So, definitely deeply unlikable. But they also... So in the 74 film, he's not a likable guy, but he's not, like, immediately hate-worthy.
Yeah.
In the 2017 version, they make him like a comically like villainous person, like straight out of the gate.
I think I like the idea of the 74 version more. That's a little bit more like the book too, in that you're like, yeah, there's something about this guy no one really likes.
There's a nuance
but
to
like
it.
he hasn't done anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's just kind of a dick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we haven't really mentioned, but he kind of has two. So you mentioned one of them because he was Poirot's former roomie. But so Ratchet kind of has two people in tow with him, which is Hector McQueen. And I believe in the movie his name is Masterman, or I'm sorry, in the book his name is Masterman.
Yeah,
Masterman. Edward Masterman. He's renamed Beddoes in the movie. Not entirely sure why. But yeah, so in the 1974 version, McQueen is played by Anthony Perkins.
Okay.
I mean, fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, he just like has that real like kind of very unsettling, you know, this is Norman Bates we're talking about. He's strange. He's a strange little fellow. And then he is Josh Gad in the 2017 version. He's fine.
I don't know who Josh Gad is.
You do.
Okay. All right. Yes, famously. Oh, hey, he's in Bob's Burgers. I don't know who this character is, though. Damon?
Don't know.
Looks like he's done a lot of voice acting, so I would probably recognize his voice, but I'm not seeing anything that I would know him from.
Wasn't he famously the one that kissed some man in one of the Disney live-action remakes?
I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure that caused all that controversy about woke Disney.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he was in Beauty and the Beast, though. I think that was the one. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, but so McQueen is kind of like Ratched's secretary, I guess. And he does translation for him, which is an important note given that Ratched responds in French when his door is knocked on. And then Beddoes / Masterman is like his valet, basically.
Yeah,
he's a very, very proper English gent, and that is what he has done his entire life, has been someone's valet.
Yep, basically he's a butler that travels with you.
Yep.
But
yeah, so I think that's everyone of importance.
So far. Because we're about to get into someone else really important. Cassetti!
Who's Cassetti?
The moment that Poirot sees the piece of paper, he goes, oh my gosh, Ratchet's not a real person. His name is Cassetti. And I pronounced that like that because I thought they were saying Cassidy for a while. But no, it's Cassetti, who is an Italian gangster from the United States. And he is famous for kidnapping, holding for ransom, and murdering a baby girl, Daisy Armstrong.
So is this the point in the story of the book that the entire Armstrong thing is first introduced?
Yep, the whole story.
Well, I'm sure they have to tell you the whole story.
Yeah, we learn it.
So I think it's quite cleverly done in the film, because the 74 film, the 2017 version actually follows that, where they don't mention it until then.
Okay.
The 74 film, its opening credits are matched with like various newspaper articles from when the Armstrong thing happened.
Oh.
So it's just like you're slowly learning about it through newspaper headlines that kind of tease, and then it opens in Istanbul.
Okay.
Which I think is well done. There's no like reason to hold it, but it also wouldn't make sense to just like have a conversation about it.
Yeah, like they wouldn't be on the train tracks. Like, remember that Armstrong kid from like 5 years ago?
That'd be crazy. So I think that handling it that way, where it plants a little seed, and it's like several things. Like, okay, the baby's kidnapped. They don't know what happened. It was the middle of the night. They end up paying a ransom, but they didn't get Daisy back. Okay, now they found Daisy's body. You learn all this through those newspaper headlines.
Yes, and I don't know if this happens in the movie, but in the book, her pregnant mother dies along with the child.
Yep. It was basically like the shock of the murder caused her to like
she goes into premature labor and
prematurely
dies.
And
her father shoots himself.
Yep.
And one of Daisy, the dead girl's nursemaids, Suzanne, kills herself because she was heavily interrogated and accused of abetting the crime, I guess.
Each version kind of has a different way that it goes about that particular storyline, but the general idea is that for some reason or another, either she was falsely accused or there was pressure on the prosecutor to pursue her rather than the truth or whatever it may be. But she, essentially ends her life because she's being unfairly blamed for it.
Yes, and because of legal technicalities, Cassetti gets off and flees the country.
Yep.
Which is how Ratchet ends up in Europe and touring around Europe.
Is it ever revealed where he's going on this trip?
I don't think so.
Okay. I was just curious. It's not mentioned in the movies either.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think so. Maybe like once, but it's clearly not important because the people who put him on the train,
Yeah.
Anyway. So we get on to the interviews.
Yep. So they found the body. He's found this, linked it to Cassetti.
Yeah. And this, doctor has given an estimate and they've examined all the wounds and they've noticed inconsistencies and they have the evidence and everything. So,
in both versions of the film, Poirot still is not interested in taking this as a case.
Really?
Yeah. He basically Book has to ask him to do it. He doesn't put up much of a fight, but he's not like, I'm going to solve this case now.
So he waits until he sees the body and everything to say, okay, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the book before that, Book is like, will you do this?
So, well, it sounds like the discovery is a little bit different because Poirot is in the room next door.
Mm-hmm.
He's already, I think, awake, and the valet comes to check on Ratchet, and that's when the body is discovered.
Yeah.
But so there's already a commotion because the valet's knocking, he's not getting an answer, so they have to go fetch Pierre Michel to unlock the door.
Yeah.
So at this point, Book has come, and Poirot has come out of his room, and so they all discover it together.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Which I think makes a lot of sense.
It does. That does make sense.
Yeah, so they immediately, everyone goes in oh, my God, what happened? And Poirot's like, don't touch anything.
Yeah.
Get out.
Everyone out.
So even though he's not choosing necessarily at that point to investigate, he's still not going to let it, be corrupted by panicking people.
Yeah, there's a importance to not corrupting the crime. So in the book, we basically go one by one, interviewing each person.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how it is in the movies?
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
Okay, so we start in the book with the conductor, Michel.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically talks about everything that Poirot saw with Mrs. Hubbard and running around and, je me suis trompé.
Oh, yes. There was a couple other things, too, that I believe Miss Hubbard complains that there's a man that she had thought there was a man in her room that night.
Yes. He tells her, Michel tells Poirot about that, about going to the room, and there's just nothing in there. He also talks about going to the other train to talk to some of the other conductors. And then he's there for a little while before he comes back to Mrs. Hubbard frantically ringing the bell, which is when she tells him, hey, there's a guy.
Right.
And that's kind of there was a big gap where there's no conductor in that car.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the big evidence he presents, I would say.
Yeah.
Tell us about Michel.
There's not much to say, honestly.
Okay.
He just kind of, is doing his thing. He just maintains kind of a professional appearance, and there's nothing that he does or says that arouses any kind of suspicion.
Yeah, no, in the book, all these people, they seem pretty matter of fact. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't really question anything they say.
At least not right away. There is the element of the button a little bit later on.
Yes.
We'll get to that, but
yeah. Next up is the secretary, McQueen,
mm-hmm.
and he basically rehashes that he was with someone else. Oh gosh, who was he with? I can't remember. But he and like Colonel Arbuthnot were together for like hours throughout the night, and they can back each other up on this. And they also saw a lady in a red kimono.
Right.
And Arbuthnot smelled the lady in the red kimono.
And how did he describe that?
Oh, like very fruity and strong. And I think he was like, she's wearing too much perfume.
Okay.
And I personally have a vendetta against Colonel Arbuthnot because he's coming from India. And this is during the British occupation of India. So don't like him immediately.
Oh, and you would be even happier to know who he's played by in 1974.
Who's he played by?
Sean Connery.
Oh.
Who was the first person that Sidney Lumet cast in this movie.
He's perfect. Total, like, piece of shit.
Yep. Big change to this character in the 2017 version, by the way.
Yes. And then is the valet, who is sharing the second class car. Who is he sharing it with? The Italian, Foscarelli.
Yes.
And they complain about each other nonstop. But they have
everybody that shares the car does.
Yeah. But they have an alibi for each other. Then is
there's a theme emerging here.
Yes.
That everyone has an alibi for each other.
Yeah. And a lot of them see the scarlet kimono.
Yes. Not all.
Not all, but many. There is the American lady who summons Olsen, I think the Swedish woman. Okay. Yes, the Swedish woman to check the door and make sure it's locked.
Yep.
So they have alibis for each other. There is the Russian princess. And despite being a princess, she's like 80 years old.
Is she actually a princess? I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
She's like actually royalty.
I don't think she's like royalty in the sense that she's like next in line for the throne.
But she's from an actual noble lineage.
I think she's like a princess, like Prince Harry's kids are like princes and princess. Okay. Like they're like number 50th in line for the throne.
Right. So they're enjoying the spoils, but none of the responsibility.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I just couldn't quite tell because it seemed like one of those things where it's like, okay, maybe she just like demands that people call her that or something.
I am la princesse. No, and I actually really like her because she's super straightforward. She's like, they give her like a very heavy like old lady Russian accent. Like, yes, you must do what you must, Monsieur Poirot. Like she has this great accent, and she's so just like you expect her. They keep her describing her like a toad. And, like, she's really ugly. But then she's, like, so nice. And I'm like, you guys are so mean to her. But
she's a bit obstinate in the movie.
No, she's, like, super, like, compliant.
Okay. Well, maybe that makes more sense for her than to be a little obstinate.
Yeah, maybe. But who is she, like, played by anyone cool or, like, what?
But I don't know the actress for the 74 version. She's definitely, like, a very old, decrepit Russian lady.
Yeah, that's what she is.
She's played by Judi Dench in the 2017 version and has approximately 3 lines.
Okay. All right.
So, not ideal.
She doesn't talk a lot in the book, but she takes up, like, her presence. You really feel it.
What kind of dogs does she have?
She does not have dogs.
She doesn't have dogs?
I'm sorry. There are no dogs.
I just assumed since that was in both movies that she had to have dogs.
No dogs.
Well, she has 2 Pomeranians in the 1974 film.
Yeah.
And then like some sort of terriers or something else small in the 2017 version. Oh. But I felt like that was very crucial.
No, there are no dogs.
That's upsetting.
I'm sorry.
Because that's what she shows up and you're just like, I know exactly who this lady is. Yeah. When she shows up on the train platform.
Yeah.
She's like super extra. She's got her 2 little palms in tow.
Yeah.
You know?
That sounds like her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the book they're also like, look how frail and weak she is. She's so frail and weak.
And she is of course accompanied by her maid.
Yes.
A German woman.
The German lady who they interview quite a bit later in the book. But yeah.
Named Hildegard Schmidt.
Hildegard Schmidt, who's also in Second Class.
Yeah.
Who is the person that they were like, well, you could bunk here, but it's with a woman. That's who.
Oh, right. That was Hildegard. Okay. Again, don't know who played her in 74, but she was played by Olivia Colman in 2017.
Okay.
Again, has about 2 lines.
Yep.
If that. She just makes a lot of faces, if I remember.
Up next is Le Comte et la Comtesse Andrenier.
Okay.
And they basically back each other up.
Mm-hmm.
The Count is like, she took a sleeping pill.
Yep.
She was snoring all night.
Yep.
Don't talk to her.
And she has a horrible drug problem in the 2017 version.
Does she really?
Yeah, she takes, what is it, barbital or whatever?
I don't remember what she takes.
It's like a barbiturate. So she's just like out of her gourd all the time.
Oh, no. In the book, she's like...
In the 74 film, she is too.
Yeah.
She's just very kind of sheepish, I guess.
Yeah.
Just kind of like
exactly
shy. Her husband, the Count, is played by Michael York in the 74 film, who you may remember was the star of one of our versions of Dr. Moreau.
Oh, yeah. Good episode.
Mm-hmm.
Go back and listen to that one when you're done with this one. I already mentioned Kerbal Arbuthnot.
Yep.
Arbuthnot.
Oh, so let me go ahead and mention that his character is combined with Dr. Constantine in the 2017 version.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
That doesn't make
Like
sense.
I said, they change a lot of things. Don't have any reason for it that I can tell.
Yeah. Okay.
He's also played by a black man in the 2017 version, Leslie Odom Jr.
Cool. We love a little bit of diversity.
This is one of the... We'll talk about that later.
Oh, boy.
It's one of those kind of like... It just felt performative.
Oh.
You know?
Yeah. Because there's like times where you change it and you cast diverse people and it's cool and it's fun. And then there's other times where you're like, you just wanted a pat.
Right. And they make a lot of these like kind of... I'm a champion of anti-racism remarks during that movie. And it's just kind of... Like it feels fake.
Okay.
You know? Whereas there are some questionable remarks made in the 1974 version at times. Nothing crazy. Yeah. But they all seem to fit with their characters. You know, so I'm not going to say one is like better or worse than the other as far as that. But the point being that the characters in the 74 film felt a lot more fleshed out. And they felt much more homogenized in the 2017 version.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that the 74 version has a significant amount of languages other than English being spoken. There's a lot of French. There's a lot of German. There's Russian. There's all sorts of things happening. And a lot of it's not even translated.
Okay.
It's just living in the world. Everyone just speaks English in the 2017 version.
Yeah, so the book is obviously written mostly in one language with the exception of a few French lines. Mm-hmm. But they say, like, oh, her English was not very good, so they spoke in German.
Right.
Like, this person could speak French well, so they spoke in French.
Yeah, it's setting that up in the story, even if it's not giving you the exact words.
Yeah, which gives you that nice flavor. Though every once in a while, it would be like, he said in French, and it's like half the line is written in French and half of it's written in English. Yeah. And you're like, just write it in English then.
So to me, that's like more diversity that actually like matters and fits into the story.
Yeah,
you know?
As opposed to tokenizing someone.
Exactly.
And then
that's exactly how it felt to me.
A pat on the back for it.
Precisely.
Okay, well, that's too bad. Next is Mr. Hardman, who is the American detective, who's like a total like noir detective. Like, I don't know what's going on, boys. Like, oh my God, I love
So is he introduced as a detective?
No.
Okay.
But he comes out about it pretty fast.
Yes. So he's like the earliest identity that has been brought to light.
He's like, oh, I'm a traveling salesman, boys. And then they're like, really? And he's like, no, I'm a police detective. I was hired by Ratchet. And I was like, so Ratchet's trying to hire multiple people. And clearly he knows the one he hired first is garbage at his job.
Right. Well, and that Poirot kind of like throws it in his face as like, well, you say that he hired you, but he actually tried to hire me. So what does that say?
But the thing, the thing is, Hardman was hired before Poirot.
Right.
So, like, Ratchet clearly did not, I should say Cassetti, did not have faith in Hardman.
Ostensibly, yes. But I think the real answer is that he was never hired.
Yeah, he may have never been
I
hired.
don't think
That's
he was.
True. Then is...
So Hardman's played by Willem Dafoe in the 2017 version.
I like that.
It works. It works fine.
Yeah. Probably if it was a better movie overall,
yes.
It would have been a really good.
Again, has about 5 lines. I think he maybe has a few more than some of the others.
Okay.
They play around with this character quite a lot, it seems like. So in the 74 film, he's an American theater agent, I think. And then he says he's an ex-cop.
Yeah.
And then, as it goes. And then Willem Dafoe pretends to be an Austrian guy.
He's instead to be American. It's
no,
like, I'm an American.
He is American.
Yeah.
He just pretends to be Austrian first, and then he mispronounces something, and Poirot's like, no Austrian would ever pronounce that way.
It's like Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, sure, exactly. But yeah, so it's just all kind of, I don't know. In that version, Defoe's character, he claims to be a Pinkerton.
Okay.
Yeah, he says he's a Pinkerton hired to protect Ratchet.
Yeah, no, he's just some ex-policeman detective.
No, again, he's not really a Pinkerton. There's layers to this. He's just an ex-cop.
Yeah. After him is the Italian, what's his name?
Foscarelli,
yeah. Who, he and Masterman, the butler, are so funny with each other, because Masterman is like, I didn't want to speak with him, and Foscarelli is like, he wouldn't speak with me, I just wanted to talk to him.
He's such a... Yeah, he's quite a character. I think it's Foscarelli that they're talking about. They have this great line in the 74 version, and I think it's the valet that delivers it. But so they're talking, him and Poirot, and he's asking about him, and he's like, does he speak English? And he says, well, a kind of English. I believe he learned it in a place called Chicago. It's just a really good... I think that's kind of the only reference to their kind of dynamic there, but it's just a really funny line.
That's a really good line. And he's from New York in the book, and they really lean into that New York Italian. Yeah. It's so funny, and he's so rambunctious, and they keep being like, a stabbing! It's something an Italian would do! It's the Italian!
Oh my.
Italians love stabbing people. And I was like, oh my God. There's so many stereotypes in the book too, where the Americans are like, oh, the English are so stiff. I don't like the English. And then the English are like, oh, those Americans, they're so brash. And then everyone's really nice to the Swedish lady, but then the Russian lady looks like a toad. It's so funny.
Well, there is a line that I read in the book though that's about that's about Olsen. That's her one mistake is being Swedish or something. I don't remember. You don't remember anything like that?
No, I don't.
It's not exactly that, but
no, it's probably that she's a good cook.
No, it has nothing to do with that.
But they literally say stuff like that the whole time. It's so freaking funny. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Well, speaking of Olsen, we didn't really touch on her at all.
Yes, you're right. We did skip over Olsen, who is a Swedish...
she's a missionary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which there's another funny piece here. I don't know that funny is the right word, but there's a lot of talk in the 74 film about her and helping her little brown babies.
Oh my God.
That's the reason that she gives for wanting to be a missionary. She wanted to go help the little brown babies.
That's horrific.
Yeah, it's really something.
But that's exactly how a lot of missionaries talk.
It is, and I think that was really the idea, is that she, this character in particular, felt like she was really playing a character. You know, the character was playing a character. Okay. They all were to an extent, but Olsen felt like the biggest kind of...
Yeah.
departure.
Her mistake was not that she was Swedish. It was that she was bad at acting.
And notably, Olsen was played by Ingrid Bergman in the 1974 movie.
Oh, cool.
She is the one that won an Oscar for this performance. She won Best Supporting Actress that year.
Oh, cool.
For this role, which,
That's
again,
awesome.
she's not in it a whole lot, but she is very good in it.
Yeah.
And she had been offered the role of the princess first and turned it down, saying that she wanted to play Olsen, even though it was a smaller part.
Yeah.
So I think she just really kind of loved the character. She does a great job. And holy shit, it struck me so much how I don't think that I had at least not in recent years, seen Ingrid Bergman in one of her later roles like this.
Mm-hmm.
She looks exactly like Isabella Rossellini now.
Really?
They look freaking identical to each other. I mean, that's her daughter, of course, but it's crazy how much she looks like her at this point in her life.
That's wild.
It's really something.
Some of us just turn into our mothers.
Yeah.
And I say us and our because a lot of people think I look exactly like my mom. Because I do.
And definitely behave like her as well.
Yeah, we speak the same and everything. Yeah.
And then this character was changed pretty significantly in the 2017 version. She's played by Penelope Cruz. And she is, I believe, from Spain and has a different name that I did not write down.
Okay, but is she also a missionary?
She's also a missionary.
Okay. Is she also trying to help little brown babies?
She does not say anything about the little brown babies.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever. All right. After the Italian, they interview Miss Debenham, who is... who the heck is Miss Debenham?
I'm a little unclear on who she's supposed to be. They just kind of present her as kind of like a well-off English woman. But I don't know what her actual role is.
She's a governess, a young governess.
Is she a governess now? Her
Yes.
character introduced is a governess.
She is the one person who's acting the least.
Okay.
She is a governess. She was a governess.
Maybe that's why it didn't stick out to me.
Pretending to be a governess, and she's really a governess.
Wow,
So maybe she
that's
was
layers.
Yeah. So actually, the worst actor was of the group. It goes Olsen and then her, but they actually knew not to give her a role. So then they're like, well, Olsen has to lie about being Spanish and saving brown babies. Not everyone can tell the truth. But she's a younger,
Yes.
younger woman who is returning from Baghdad.
Yeah.
And she also has an alibi.
I
They all have alibis.
don't remember what it is, but and she's played by Vanessa Redgrave in the 1974 film and Daisy Ridley in the 2017 film.
Okay. Daisy Ridley? Wait,
from Star Wars.
Okay. Okay, cool. Then we have Hildegard Schmidt, who is the Russian princess's maid. And they're tight as thieves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they have alibis for each other.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. I kind of left out a lot of the details of the actual case.
I mean, yeah, basically what you need to know is, why don't you talk about Hildegard Schmidt before I move on if you want to?
I already did.
Okay, so basically what you need to know at this point is that for some reason everyone has alibis for everyone else. They one person describes bumping into a conductor who is not on the train. Mm-hmm. And a bunch of people have seen a woman in a red kimono, including Poirot. And Poirot's like, okay, everyone's lying.
Yep. Yep, that's what it seems like. And they do make an attempt of, again, some of them kind of, release some information to Poirot, I guess, in an attempt to make him feel like he's uncovering something. So again, with Hardman kind of letting his identity loose quite quickly during this period, that would be one of them.
Yeah.
And then you didn't really mention about McQueen's connection, which also comes out during these.
Go for it. What was it?
So it's a little different in every version, but so at this point, Poirot has brought up that Cassetti was the real identity of Ratchet. And so McQueen eventually lets loose that he was the son of the prosecutor. Again, it's a little different. He was the family lawyer for the Armstrong, his father was.
Yeah.
I think in the book, he was his father was the prosecutor of the case.
Yeah.
Against Cassetti.
Which is very similar.
Yeah. Basically the same thing, but this is revealed at that point. So this is kind of the first like big connection to the Armstrong case that's revealed right away.
Yes, you are correct about that. And I was going to add that McQueen also, which is actually a mistake he makes, is he says that he's the translator, and several times he says that Cassetti could not speak French.
Right. Yeah, he makes that very clear.
Yeah, and as you will recall, Poirot heard Cassetti supposedly say, I made a mistake in French.
Yeah.
So this is where things start to unravel and uncover themselves. Also, I should say, during every single interview, Poirot was like, so this guy was this famous gangster. And everyone goes, well, I'm glad he's dead. Literally everyone has the same reaction.
Yep, absolutely.
They all have alibis. No one wears a scarlet kimono. No one looks like this guy who's been described as who attempted to murder Ratchet.
Yes.
My brain is having a hard time with Ratchet having two names. It's just like,
let's just call him Cassetti at this point.
Cassetti. So this is where the little mistakes start to kind of be what Poirot is picking out. Things like Mrs. Hubbard saying, first, Mrs. Hubbard is in an uproar because a knife has been found in her sponge bag.
Well, so she also finds a button.
Yes, she also finds a button. Yeah, and
that comes from the same uniform that Pierre Michel, the conductor, was wearing.
Yes.
But not from his uniform.
Yes, and none of the conductors are missing buttons, and also it's notably not in a place where any of the conductors went in her cabin, and she is vouching.
So there are multiple conductors in the book?
Yeah, but most of them aren't named.
Yeah, but I'm just saying there are other, because in the movie they make very clear that he is the only conductor on board.
No, each train has, or each like car has its own conductor. I think the first and second class like share a conductor or something like that. But because so the way the train works is like they add on a car at Istanbul, they add on a car at this place. So there's like a conductor for each car that they're like adding and taking off.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a few conductors, but Michelle's the only one that matters.
Okay. But I just mean, like, they clearly use that as a way to be, like, it could not have been someone else. Yeah. Like, they try to use it as a distraction, in other words.
Yeah. And they say, like, no, it was not any of these conductors that we see. They even, like, bring all the conductors out, and they try to identify. It's not him. So they're literally, like, don't know what they're looking for at this point. They're going off some vague description, and they start piecing things together, like, they're searching everyone's luggage, and they notice the Countess has like in her interview, they notice there's a big grease smudge over her name. Mm-hmm. And then they notice the tag on her luggage is ruined and wet.
Because it's also worth mentioning that because of that handkerchief with the letter H on it,
yes,
Poirot has been trying to connect that to everyone's name.
Yes, and it doesn't make sense for like one person because it's too fancy. It doesn't make sense for this person, that person. I figured this one out early.
Did you?
I did. So they go through this whole thing of like, well, the Countess is actually Elena, but no, she's actually Helena, the sister of the Armstrong mother who died.
And are you aware of that name and connection before this?
I don't think so.
Okay. Because that's the only thing that would prevent you from really knowing about that is they don't reveal that Sonia Armstrong had a sister until that comes up.
Exactly, yeah. And then they're like, so the H must be her. And I was like, you guys are forgetting about Cyrillic. And then I didn't totally remember the alphabet, but I was like, I would put big money down that what looks like an H to us is an N to them.
Okay.
And I was correct. Yep. Anyway, so there are these little things picking up, and they're putting all these little pieces together. They're searching everyone's luggage. There's a knife, and there's this and that, and then like all this stuff is going on, basically, that they're just putting it together. And like this is also the point where everyone decides to close their eyes and think about what's happening. And there's like a whole chapter of these three guys just like with their eyes closed. And it's actually quite funny because like one guy is like stressed and he's thinking, it's like Monsieur Bouc is like stressed about the train and when are the police going to get here and when are they going to get us out? Because they're supposed to be thinking about the case. And then Constantine is like, this stuff doesn't make sense. And then he like starts thinking about an affair he's having. And Poirot is just kind of piecing things together, but they kind of cut it off and move on. And then later on, Poirot breaks the silence, and it's like, they say something like, he breaks Dr. Constantine out of like a pornographic reverie or something.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and how he was like fantasizing about a woman who's not his wife.
But that is kind of how Poirot like pieces it together, right? He goes into like a trance.
Yeah, he goes to his mind palace.
His mind palace, yeah. That's more of a Sherlock Holmes.
He doesn't do that in the books.
Yeah.
If you think about it, the mind palace probably came from Poirot, and then they put it in the movies and the TV shows and stuff like that for Sherlock Holmes. Because we don't see Sherlock Holmes being like, I'm going into my mind.
Yeah, I suppose not.
He's just like, I'm going to go put on a fake beard.
That's what Sherlock Holmes sounds like?
I guess so. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess Poirot just has like he envisions it in his mind.
Yeah. And then he goes to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And finds a red kimono. Oh, they also find the conductor's uniform in someone's
right. Yeah, it's in
bag.
Debenham's or somebody's bag, maybe.
Someone who he's like, they're young and innocent, and it's probably not them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they find these things. They find the knife. They find all these things, and then he calls everyone.
Yes, this is the come together moment.
So the grand reveal is between two ideas that he has. The first idea is that someone came on the train disguised as a conductor, kills Monsieur Ratchet or Cassetti, and escapes at the last stop they were at.
Belgrade, I believe.
Belgrade, yeah. And
this would have been the motive being that Cassetti was a mafia member, and this would have been either some sort of revenge or a rival mafia or something.
Hit something. Yeah, exactly. And Monsieur Bouc and Mr. Dr. Constantine are like, are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. Even you thought that was ridiculous like 5 minutes ago. What's going on?
I don't think that sounds any more ridiculous than reality.
Okay. The reality is every single person except for the Countess stabbed him once.
Mm-hmm. Just once.
Just once. And the reason the Countess didn't do it is because her husband, the Count, stood in for her. So the Countess slept like a baby through this whole thing, though she knew what was going on. So they
and in the 2017 film, she gets to not only not have to deal with it, but she's fucked up on barbiturates this whole time.
Which is fair. She's been through a lot of trauma. Please seek help. But yeah, so everyone stabbed him once, and then they were like, well, there's this guy on the train, so we have to concoct a plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did not have a backup plan for this.
No. And some idiot was like, oh, I'm going to speak in French and say, oh, je me suis trompé. And then everyone's like, Cassetti doesn't speak French.
Why would you do that? Just because Pierre Michel speaks French? He also clearly speaks English.
Pierre Michel probably speaks every language on the face of the planet.
Come on.
It's so, like, watching the thread unravel it's like, I figured out, I was like, so there's a reason all of these people are on the train. They are somehow connected. But every single, the Italian was the chauffeur for the Armstrongs? Yeah, the Armstrongs. One of them is the cook. The princess admits earlier that she was the godmother of one of the daughters of the Armstrong daughters. And, it's like all these, people are connected. And you get, 2 of them. And then all the rest are suddenly like, and I was the gardener, and I was the son, and I was this person. And you're like, how do you know randomly that this guy was the chauffeur? That makes no sense.
Well, he was a car salesman.
Yeah, but like that doesn't mean he likes driving people around in a car.
Of course it does.
But then, Foscarelli is like, yes, little Daisy used to sit on my lap and try to drive the car, and it's so cute. And I was so mad. He took such beauty out of the world. And it's just...
Well, any Italian listeners we have are now gone.
Okay, no, that's not me mimicking Italians. That's the way they did it in the book.
Yeah, that's fair.
But also remember that he's probably a fake Italian anyway. But then Monsieur Bouc and Dr. Constantine are like, yeah, the dude escaped off the train and everyone here is innocent. Oh, wait. I forgot a big thing. I'm sorry.
We're just all over the place. Jesus.
It's also revealed that Mrs. Hubbard is Sonia Armstrong's mother, who is a famous actress. And suddenly the mask comes off and she's this elegant, beautiful, well-spoken woman who is not at all ridiculous or annoying. And everyone likes her.
Yeah, as Poirot says in one of the movies, it's her last great performance.
Yeah.
Linda Arden is her real name.
Linda Arden. Yes, that is her real name. So, and then they were like, and then Poirot retires from the case and the book ends.
Okay, can we just bring it back a little bit? What on earth? So the way it's presented is that he clearly knows the truth, and he is presenting two options, and he says, these are the two options, I will lay them out, and that's when he describes everything as it's happened. And then he turns to Bouc and he says, I'm going to allow you to decide which of these two stories we tell the police when we arrive.
Yeah.
And Bouc says, I think I'm going to go with the first one.
Yeah. They protect him.
Yes, exactly. And obviously Poirot wrestles with the ethics of this a little bit, but he does clearly believe that Cassetti was a man that probably deserved to die, and that, justice had not been delivered to him in the formal sense.
Yeah.
So, it's also very important that this was a group of 12 people. What else comes in groups of 12? Juries. Yes. So they were acting as their own vigilante jury.
Yeah. I don't think Poirot wrestles with it that much in the book.
Okay.
He's like, yep, it's cool. I didn't like his face.
I mean, I think that's why he ultimately, if it was up to him and him alone, he would have to tell the truth.
Yeah.
But that's why he puts it on someone else.
Yeah. And really it is up to the director of the train to be the one who...
Because technically he's the one that hired Poirot to do it. Hired, quote unquote.
Begged a friend. And Dr. Constantine is the one who examined him. Right. So they're the two who really have to come to the conclusion and what they want to share.
So everyone kind of just gets to go on their merry way. Did we want to talk about who some of these people were in some sort of sensible order?
Sure.
Rather than you just remembering one at a time and shouting it.
Yeah, okay, so let's start with Miss Hubbard. She is actually, as we already said, an American actress, Linda Arden, who always fancied herself in a comedic role, as she says in the book, which I loved. Next up
so again, you said she's the mother of Sonia Armstrong.
Yes, the grandmother of Daisy. Yes,
the dead child. Yes. And then, we'll get to her other relative here in a second. But she's kind of the one that orchestrated the whole thing.
Yeah, she's sort of the mastermind behind it. And she is the one who, when they accuse everyone of having part in the murder, she says, let everyone off, say I was the one who did it. So she even is the one who wants to take the blame in the end, and she wants to protect everyone. After that is Mary Debenham, who is the governess, who was also Daisy Armstrong's governess.
Right.
So, as we said, no acting there. Colonel Arbuthnot was Colonel Armstrong's best friend. Yes. And they were in war together, and he's also in love with Mary Debenham in case.
Engaged to be married, I believe.
Yeah. Then we have the Russian princess, who was Sonia Armstrong's godmother, Sonia being Daisy Armstrong's mother. Hector McQueen was his father was Armstrong's lawyer. Yes. The Countess Helena Andrenier was Sonia Armstrong's sister, and the only one who did not murder anyone. The Count was obviously the wife, the brother-in-law.
Yeah, he had no direct,
Yeah, but, if your sister-in-law is murdered, your wife is going to be upset. You're probably willing to...
he was involved.
Foscarelli was the chauffeur, and he really loved Daisy. Greta Olson was Daisy Armstrong's nurse. Hildegard Schmidt was the Armstrong's cook, and she's the one who they figure out that Poirot was like, oh, I bet you're a good cook. And she's like, yep. And he's like, he cooked for the Armstrongs. Yep. He just does it that fast.
Which it's like, I guess it makes sense that a maid would not have to cook, but like, how do you know their work arrangement?
Right? He's like, a lady would not taste her nurse or her maid's cooking. And it's like, I don't know, maybe she does sometimes. You don't know, man. Masterman, the butler, was Colonel Armstrong's Batman, which is kind of like an assistant.
It's a valet for the military.
Yeah. Sometimes described as a servant.
Yeah. Right. Again, that's what he does.
Yeah. Cyrus was in love with the French nursemaid Suzanne, who killed herself.
Oh, I also forgot to mention that Suzanne is renamed Paulette in the 74 version. Just to make sure there's no confusion.
Yes. And then Pierre Michel, the conductor, was the father of Suzanne / Paulette, who killed herself.
Yep.
And that is the cast of suspects.
I believe that's all of them.
Yeah.
Lots of characters here.
Yeah, it's a big cast, which clearly makes it hard to make a movie out of.
It does. It definitely does. Yeah. Like I said, the 74 film makes a valiant effort to include all these characters and flesh them out.
Yeah.
And the other one does not.
So how long is the 74 version?
2 hours and 7 minutes.
Okay, that's not that long for that big of a cast.
No.
And then the 2017?
An hour and 55, or something like that.
Yeah, so it's shorter, but it's not that much shorter to not flesh out at least most of the characters. Because I could also understand there's 13 suspects. I could understand maybe you like cut down to like 6 or something like that.
And I think that's what a lot of other versions, like especially on the TV shows and other things that I read about but did not watch, I think that's what they opt for.
Yeah, because like, for example, you can still have people give alibis for each other, but maybe you don't need like the Italian chauffeur.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't need the cook, right? You can combine some of these. Maybe instead of a missionary and the missionary and the cook, that's one character.
It's fun to have all the characters if you can pull it off, and I do think that version does. But
the 74, yeah,
I really do.
And it sounds like it does. It sounds like maybe the 17, which they only combined 2 characters, correct? All the rest are there.
Yes.
But Arbuthnot is combined with the Doctor.
Yeah, they change a lot of names. They change some people's relationships with each other, but nothing like hugely important.
So in the 17 version, with Arbuthnot and the Doctor being one and the same, is there like a conflict of interest there? Is it just that he's a doctor that's not related? How does that
He's
work?
not really involved in the investigation.
Okay.
Like, I guess he does the autopsy, but that's it.
Yeah, and it's barely an autopsy.
Well, yeah, I'm using that term very loosely, but yeah, I think he like identifies the cause of death and stuff. But
he was stabbed 12 times, and everyone goes, "Yeah, I can count too."
Again, it's not a change that I really understand outside of, like you said, just trying to cut it down. But at that point, it's like, what's the point?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Just a strange choice.
And if you're going to combine one character, like, I think other ones would have been.
They definitely could have. I mean, especially if you're not going to use them for their... Yeah, like if you're not going to get the humorous aspects out of it or the fun character quirks or anything, then like, why bother?
Yeah, cut that character and let this other character shine more.
Yeah, exactly.
Something I want to add, which is also kind of funny because the last Hercule Poirot story was written in 75 or published in 75. And he was the first and only fictional character to receive a front page obituary in the New York Times.
Is that right? Mm-hmm. Wow. What a guy, huh?
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's a long run.
Yeah.
It was 20s to the 70s.
Yeah, that's a very long time. I would understand why she would be tired of it, but she was tired of him within a few years, it sounds like.
Yeah, she was tired of him by the 30s, which was, again, before this book was written. It was pretty fast. She knew she had written a annoying character.
Yes, but that's, his charm at the same time.
Also, something else I want to highlight is that I really like how the Count and Countess are written. They really clearly love each other.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think a lot of times in some of these like 30s era stuff, there's like this weird they don't really love their wife.
Oh, that's just my bitch wife. Don't mind her, she's insane.
Yeah, basically she's on barbiturates. But he like really defends her and really loves her. And I mean, it's also clear that he really loves her because he doesn't let her commit the murder, or he steps up in her place, even though she is like so closely related to, apart from her and like Linda Arden, they're like the two closest to this, you know? Yeah. And so I think it means a lot that he stepped up to murder someone.
And I think the inclusion of characters like them, especially her, being so close to the victim, but the Armstrongs.
Yeah.
And, being generally kind of young and fairly innocent in every other way, I feel like contributes to Poirot's decision in the end. Yeah. If this was cut down and some of these characters weren't present, I think that he might have had a different idea about justice, but that he's, clearly seeing the pain that this whole thing has caused these people. Yeah. And I think that's part of the reason why he opts to let it go.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big tragedy. Like, it wasn't one child that died. It was a whole family.
Right. And that's, he mentions several times that he doesn't view it as just the murder of Daisy, because there's multiple suicides in the wake of it. There's, just these branching effects.
Yeah.
So he lays all that at the feet of Cassetti very directly.
Yeah. Something cool I noticed that Agatha Christie almost did was there's Armstrong, Andrenier, and Arden. All start with A.
Okay.
But Arbuthnot. I really hate that name.
Arbuthnot
also starts with an A. And he is not a blood relative.
Right.
She should have changed his last name. Then you could have had the 3 A's.
Okay.
And that would have been like a good clue. That
just a nice,
somehow all of them.
Where are the anagrams is what I need to know here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The anagrams.
Where are my anagrams?
Yeah, we need more.
I like crosswords.
Yeah. We need more stuff like that. I'm good at crosswords. Well, Alan, is there anything else you want to share with us?
I want to hear what you think of the book overall a little bit more.
I really enjoyed it. That was just that one thing that I really, I wish there was a little bit more to point to words like, oh, everyone's in on this. Mm-hmm. Not just, oh, the godmother and the sister happen to be here, but like, oh, but this guy's also related. So like if we got a couple more of those, then you'd start to see the whole picture, I think.
Yeah,
But the fact that it's only 3 people, because the Count and Countess are, married, is just a little bit of a stretch for me to say all 12 people are there. But I did get to the point where I was like, all these people are here for a reason. So I really liked it. I would definitely read more. Mm-hmm. It's super easy reading. It was super fast. It was super fun. I think like reading it as a book would be really cool, because I was even like, ooh, I want to make a spreadsheet. I want to write down.
This is one of those things where you can go real going crazy, drawing lines between things on the board or whatever. So
yeah, and I love that. I mean, I love a good mystery.
And that's one of the things that I think that this does well is it is a slight subversion of the whodunit, and that usually, he even makes Poirot while he's doing his reveal at the end, he's like, and now we come to the night of the murder, or should I call it the night of red herrings?
Oh yeah,
because that's what it is.
Yeah.
Where a lot of these stories they're designed the same way to make you be like, I mean, basically like Book was, It's like, no, they did it. Yeah. Oh, it had to be them now. Where you're just going from one person to the next because it makes sense.
Yeah.
And in most cases, those are all red herrings.
And in this one, it's the opposite.
It's the opposite. Yeah. It actually is everybody.
Yeah.
and I love that.
And I would say also when you listen to the interviews of everyone, you're not like, this person did it, this person did it, this person did it. You're like, well, no, they didn't do it. Wait, but they didn't do it. But they didn't do it. And so by the end, you're like, someone's lying.
There's some amount of suspicion. Like, you suspect a couple people, at least in the movies, a little more than others. Like, McQueen is really suspicious, to start with. And then you feel people kind of dodging certain things.
Yeah.
But it is at different levels. You're right that it feels like some people like don't feel like involved at all, and some people do. It's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So what'd you think of the movies? I mean, we know a little bit. But...
I think the 1974 film did a fantastic job of adapting this.
Mm-hmm. I think it sounds like it did.
It's a hard story to put together in a way that will make sense, like I said, in such a short runtime.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 hours is a longer movie, especially for that time period, but it's a lot of characters to get through in that amount of time.
Yeah.
I feel like it really, like I said, gets across that kind of wackiness of Poirot. Again, he's very prim, proper, very finicky about certain things. But again, he's like, I mean, when he's doing the reveal, like he literally is just like everyone is towering over him. You can see that he is not a tall man.
Yes.
He's just limping back and forth across this train car, like detailing this information. And, he gets very animated at points about it. So it really is like he's just a raving lunatic.
Yeah,
and it's perfect. It's really perfect.
Yeah.
Whereas Branaugh decided to go again more like, it can't help but seem self-serving because he's the one adapting and playing it. Where he feels a lot more like down to earth and more sophisticated in like a cool way. Yeah. And that's just not what Poirot is to me.
No, he's not he's sophisticated in that he understands like polite society and the rules, but he like goes right up to the edge of it.
Yeah.
And he says weird things and he'll be like, well, excuse my impertinence, but I'm about to ask you something really embarrassing. What color is your underwear?
Right. No, it's not that same kind of sophistication. Yeah. It's that he knows what he likes, and that's what he does, and he takes good care of his hygiene and especially his mustache.
Important.
And everything else he's just very strange about. So I just don't feel like that fit. He also leaned really heavily, and I'm curious what you think about this. He leaned really heavily into basically Poirot having OCD, which I feel like is a very lazy encapsulation of his character.
And that's honestly like a detective trope.
It is.
Like you think about Monk, and then you think about kind of like Sherlock Holmes and Sherlock. They kind of have this and I don't even want to say it's a genuine OCD. It's like a stereotypical OCD.
That's the big problem, too, is like Poirot in the books has some finickiness that's definitely a bit compulsive. But
it's not, he's not having obsessions and compulsions.
So let me outline it in the very opening scene when we're introduced to Poirot in 2017. He's walking behind someone down the street, and he steps in a pile of horse shit. Which is already just like, this is how we're introducing this character?
Yeah.
Okay. And then he says, it's not the problem of stepping in it, it's the problem of imbalance. And then he puts his other shoe into the horse shit.
What?
To balance it.
That's weird.
It's stupid as hell.
Because the thing is, I think he would step in the horse shit and then be like, oh mon Dieu. Just my luck. And then go scrape his shoe on the sidewalk and it would be funny, right?
Exactly. That's not the type of person he is. And then, so this is introduced that way. He has a few other little things where things have to be just so, got it. And then it's completely ignored for the next hour. Until the very end when he gets off the train and everything has been solved and this man comes to deliver him. In this case, he's no longer going to London because the movie decides to tie directly into Death on the Nile. Okay. So he's now being sent to Egypt instead. But the man delivering this message to him, his tie is slightly askew. No. And he decides to say, straighten your tie, please. No. So it just ignores this whole character trait for an hour. And just does these little quippy things that are just like, it makes me want to throw something at the screen.
Yeah, it's like, tee-hee, OCD, so funny.
It's so bad. It's bad.
It sounds really bad, and it's not at all. I mean, first off, it's not an accurate portrayal of OCD.
No.
Secondly, you're going to have a character that does these weird quippy things at the beginning and end and then ignore it throughout.
It's like not built into the character at all.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
Don't have him do that.
It's very frustrating.
And then it's not even like him in the book. Like, he might be like, straighten your tie, you look like a mess.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't be like, oh, it bothers me,
It's just so upset. And that's literally like the last line of the movie.
Oh.
It's just like, what are we doing here? No. And this is on top of having to listen to Kenneth Branaugh basically go, ha ha, wee wee baguette for 2 hours. Because he's... Anyway... You just did a better French accent than he did. Let's put it that way. Yeah, At some points, he completely slips out of it.
I probably studied French longer than Kenneth
Maybe
Branaugh.
So. I don't know. But it's just like, dude, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm about to ask you if the book was better than the movie.
God. I'm not even done. Hold on a second.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I didn't even talk about the... So, again, you have this stacked cast. Yes. Like, again, this is ripe for an ensemble cast. And they did it with the casting. But then the script allows no one to shine. Yeah. No one is able to explore their characters. Everyone is just, like, super over-the-top, overacting, over-exaggerated the whole time. But, again, there's zero nuance given to any of their characters.
Which the whole point is that there's nuance.
Yeah. There's all these, like, so the 74 film has these nice exterior shots of the train while it's still moving. Of it, it shows it in different locations, and it's like going over this bridge, and you see all the smoke pouring out, and then it's hitting the snow, and they hit the snow bank, and it flies off to the side or something, The 2017 version is these weird, like, CGI, like, big sweeping over the whole train and landscape kind of thing. It looks like you're in the fucking Wizard of Oz. Like, I don't understand it.
I was going to say, maybe a more apt comparison is the Polar Express.
Maybe. It's like, I don't even mind it being, but why do you have to make it look whimsical?
Yeah.
There's nothing whimsical about this.
No.
I don't understand. And they also have this very, like, kind of whimsical little music going on. It's just absolute insanity.
That's really weird.
It drove me crazy.
So... the 2017 version is Hercule Poirot meets the Polar Express.
Sure.
In The Wizard of Oz. Got it. Wizard of Oz is a good movie.
Fantastic movie.
Polar Express is not.
No.
Not a movie
very off-putting.
You ever want to be compared to.
No. I guess that's fair, but, like, it makes sense in The Wizard of Oz. It does not in Murder on the Orient Express.
It's almost like it's called Murder on the Orient Express.
It's just unfathomable. I don't understand anything about the tone or style of this movie. I don't understand the writing. I don't understand all the changes that were made. I don't understand why anything of any, like, nuance or mystery or any kind of questioning about anything is just completely stripped out.
Oh, boy.
Anyway.
Wow. Okay, so we know how you feel about the 2017 version. We're going to set that one aside. Mm-hmm. What do we think about the book and the movie for the 74?
I think that it would be pretty much a toss-up from what I've heard.
Yeah.
And I would probably default to the book in that case.
Yeah, and I would say, I guess what I would, it's such a big cast. It's not necessarily a big story, but it's a big cast.
Yeah.
So having that longer format, which is not long for a book, but having that longer format maybe lets you dive into things a little bit more and see a little bit more of these characters and be with them more.
We've talked incessantly about how books are able to explore characters more in depth like that, and that is the entire point of the story.
Yeah, so we'll give it to the book, but we're gonna give the 74 a toast, a good commendation.
It's a great movie for sure.
Yeah.
One that's impressively made and could have been made very poorly in other hands, as we have seen.
Yes, and probably has been made poorly several times over, in addition to being made well several times over.
And there's even a lot of talk when it came out about how, it had been so long since the original story, and there was a bit of shock about why it had not been adapted, because it was already very popular. And it, some people brought up, I think it might have been Roger Ebert that I saw point out that, like, you couldn't have made that film that well earlier.
Yeah.
Because you're just not able to get the same amount of, like, shots, and you wouldn't have the same style of film. Like, films that were made in the 30s were not made that way.
Yeah. And they just didn't, like, a really good noir, really good mystery. This is not a noir, but a really good noir in that period and mysteries in that period. Casts were just not that big.
It would have had it would have been, like, the one or two big stars, and then, like, because ensemble casts weren't really a thing back then, No. Which is not to say you couldn't make good movies in the 30s. They certainly did.
Yeah.
Just to really capture this, I don't think could have happened much earlier than this. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I trust Roger Ebert for that, or Roger and Ebert, as I often call him, because I didn't realize it was one person for a while. Well, I think that about sums up our thoughts, Alan. Mm-hmm. Any last gripes you want to get out about the 17 version?
I think I ranted. It's just no good. I haven't seen any of the two following ones, but
you won't have to.
We also famously have Death on the Nile bringing back Armie Hammer too. So, it's just a real mess, this whole series.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we might not be going down the Kenneth Branaugh train. Haha. But we will probably talk about Agatha Christie again.
Yes, almost certainly.
But before we sign off, it's time for a game.
You really got to find a little jingle for this.
Maybe we can add it in post. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Mankind was born on Earth. It was never meant to die here.
Oh, shoot. I know this one, too.
I think it's a really bad tagline.
I have 100% seen this tagline.
You definitely know this.
Prometheus.
No.
Am I in the right franchise?
I don't know if this is a franchise, but I think you're kind of in the right, idea. Also, I don't know enough about Prometheus to give you that kind of information. Why don't I tell you the year this came out instead?
Okay, fine.
2014.
Alien Covenant.
No, but you are getting close. It is a sci-fi, epic, adventure, epic, sci-fi, epic, adventure, epic. If I tell you who's in it, you're going to get it immediately. And you're going to be mad at yourself.
Yeah, probably. I'm already mad at myself because the second you said it, I know it.
Yeah. Time dilation. Does that tell you anything?
Interstellar?
Yes, Interstellar. Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, Jessica Chastain. When Earth becomes uninhabitable in the future, a farmer, and ex-NASA pilot Joseph Cooper is tasked to pilot a spacecraft along with a team of researchers to find a new planet for humans.
Great film.
Yeah? Did you like it?
I liked it a lot.
Okay.
I was a little disappointed in it at first, but it's grown on me a lot.
I like the sand, where she's pushing the sand in the books. And then he's like reading it on the floor.
I believe we went to see that movie together on a very early date.
Oh, did we? Is that why I've seen it?
I think so.
Because I have no idea why I've seen this movie.
Yeah, I think we did.
2014, we would have been dating towards the end of 2014.
Yeah, it came out in November or something, I think.
Yeah, maybe we did see it together. Or maybe we watched it at home together.
Anyway, but that movie has been... really, it never went away or anything, but there has been a huge resurgence about that movie lately.
Well, there's a lot of talk about space travel and stuff like that lately.
All the youngins have been discovering it, even though it's only been 11 years.
Only been 11 years. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
It's a good one. And it was just re-released on IMAX this year, which was cool. I didn't make it. But.
Oh, that would actually be really fun to see in IMAX. Yeah. You know what movie I really like? The Gravity with Sandra Bullock.
That was a good one.
That was a really good one. And George Clooney, hallucinations. It's a good hallucination to have, George Clooney.
Is that what you hallucinate about?
Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah. I mean, if I was going to hallucinate about something, it would be Amala Clooney's husband. All right. That's enough of that nonsense. Thank you for listening to In Contrast. I'm Nisha.
I'm Alan.
Don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe. It really, really helps us out for real. You can find us at In Contrast Pod on Instagram and Blue Sky. Next up, we will rate, review, and talk about Fight Club, which is actually also a very short book by Chuck Palahniuk. Correct?
Yep.
Yes, Chuck Palahniuk. And I actually knew a guy whose last name was Palahniuk, but it was spelled differently. And the 1999 film, which you've probably seen.
Almost everyone alive has probably seen.
Even I've seen. So thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time, where we will ask the important question, is the book really better than the movie?
Bye-bye.